Hello and welcome to yet another webinar. This one is on telelisting. Telelisting is one company you can go to get a list that removes all of the numbers from the do not call list so that you know who you can call, and of course you don't want to call anybody that's on the do not call list or you're subject to fines, etc. So telelisting is available a couple ways. So you can buy telelisting directly from them yourselves, but I believe it's around $350 a year. We have a volume license subscription through the brokerage that you can buy. I believe it's $125 a year, which is the current pricing in 2017. Um, that's around $125 a year. Now, the year runs from November 1st through October 31st. So if you get it partway through the year, the price is prorated. You don't pay for what you don't get. So if you need that, please see Assistant MCA Dawn at the front of our Kitchener office. She can get you a subscription for that, and they just throw the fee onto your monthly office statement. So once you have your account for telelisting, the account that or the website that you want to go to log into your account is telelisting.net. So up here, so that's what you want to enter into your browser, telelisting.net. Once you've gone to this website, this is what you get. So what you want to do at this point is you want to click on login. Once you've clicked on login, you want to enter your account credentials. So whatever you probably got an email with whatever account your email address was registered under, and a password that you would have got from your subscription. So enter that information into here. And then you want to log in. Once you're logged in, you will get to this screen. And all you have to do at this point is just click on the Access the Phone Book. So once you're accessing the phone book, you can search by first name, last name, phone number, house number, street number. Basically, this is just gathering whatever number. It's basically kind of a record of like the white pages of a phone book. And so you'll find that you won't find a lot of cell phone numbers in here unless it was somebody that was on a landline and then flip it to a cell phone. So it's not every phone number, but again, it has every address registered. As far as if people have a phone number and they registered on the do not call list, it will be in here. So you want to use this. You can search by street number. I find the vast majority of stuff that I search on telelisting is I go to map search here. Unless you're calling a particular street, you can use this, but otherwise I'm going to map search. Say I am going to call a whole subdivision. Instead of having to search each individual street on the field search, I can just go to map search and I can lasso the whole subdivision and get everything on there. So as an example, say I've got an open house and we're going to maybe in the Northwest Waterloo, and we want to call that area to let people know about the open house. And of course we've got a script and all that we're going to use with this. Now you'll notice here that telelisting always centers over Montreal. I've called telelisting tech support. There is no way to change that. So it's always going to come up at Montreal, but doesn't really matter. You're just going to come in here and type. You can type a city, a state, a zip code, whatever you want, a postal code. Let's just type in Waterloo for now. And literally, I'm just doing this to center the map over Waterloo. So we'll put Waterloo in here, and we'll click on there. So this will center in over Waterloo. Now I can just kind of go out, 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 and then I want to just scroll over and say this is the area that I want to call. So I want to call this area here because I'm having an open house here, and I want to call everybody in the neighborhood about my open house. So what you do at this point is you come up right here. You see this little, it almost looks like a bent triangle. It's what's called the polygon tool. So we click on the draw shape here. Click there once, and then what you want to do is you want to lasso the neighborhood. So you click here. And if I scroll out, the map will move, but we'll go like this. Notice that I'm clicking outside of the street that I'm looking at. Because if I put this right down this middle of the street, I'm not going to get the houses on the opposite side of the road. So as an example, if I drew this line right down here on Westmount Road, I'd get the houses on this side of the road, but I wouldn't get the houses on this side of the road. So that's why I've done it that way. And then you got to make sure when you're going around that you reconnect with the first dot. Otherwise, it doesn't circle this circle the whole thing. Now, when you scroll down here, you'll see on this list, this is the information you get. The ones in red are on the do not call list. So to get rid of the ones you can't call on the do not call list, we just scroll back up here on the top and you click on the hide do not call list listings. Click that. Sometimes, depending on your internet connection, can be a little slow. They disappear eventually. And you'll see here that there are 143 numbers that you can call. Now, maybe that's a little bit big for calling an open house, but that's a perfect size if you're calling a new listing. I mean, this is just an example. You use it the way you do. It's the same process. You're just circling an area, and then you get your list here. And you'll notice that there's 100 records per page here. So there's more pages here. So there are things you can do now. So if you want to export it into an auto dialer, there are built-in integrations for sales dialers and Mojo that you can export directly to. Now again, if you're starting out, you may not have the budget to use an auto dialer. So you may just want to print this list. You may want to export to Excel. Now don't pay attention to the amount of credits on this account here. You usually get about 15,000 credits, which means that there's 15,000 numbers that you can export in your year subscription. So if you go over that, you have to buy more credits, which cost about as much as your subscription just for another 1,000 credits. So it's very expensive. So you can use this function. Once you run out of credits, though, you will want to you can probably, instead of buying more credits, you can just go and you can actually copy and paste into Excel if you don't want to use up all your credits. So I'm going to do that here just to show you how to do that, just so you can see how to. You can save a little bit of money, but it's one of those things. It's a time versus money type of thing. This takes more time and doesn't cost money. The other way, you spend money and you get your time back, and you can do other things with that time. But when you are starting out, you tend to do have the time to copy and paste this, and then not be spending a whole bunch of extra money where you have that lag of 6 months before your first paycheck, etc. So once you're in here, what I want to do is I'm going to open Excel on my computer. And so this is what I did when I started out. Didn't have a lot of resources available. I had enough time that it wasn't impacting my day too much just to copy and paste. So I have this here. I'm going to make my view just a little bit bigger for everybody here, so I can see a little bit better. And what we do now is we go back into our web browser, and just as long as you're in here, you got to be right in this left column here, and we're just going to go like this and move it. Sometimes if you jiggle your mouse, it'll go down the list faster. So this is the first 100 records. And then make sure that you don't highlight this because you're going to get those displaying items. You just got to go right here and then release your mouse. Now, make sure you're on one of these highlighted fields, and then you want to right click. When you right click, then we can copy. So we hit copy, and then we go over to Excel here. Then right click on this cell and then paste. Now for some reason it always goofs on the first column. So you basically have to go in here, select this, right click, and you want to cut, and then you want to paste right in one more field over just to get everything in the right spot. So now your first 100 records are all here. Now we want to go down to the bottom of these first 100 records. So you can see that this can get a little tedious because we're going to go back to our web browser now. We're going to go to page 2 now. Takes a minute sometimes for the list to update. And sometimes you don't even see it update, like we didn't see it here. And then you got to go back up to the top of that list again, and we're just going to copy this 100 records. So again, tedious, but you don't waste your credits and spend a whole bunch of money to get new credits. And then we right-click, copy, back to Excel, and we paste. Again, that first line is always messed up a little bit, so we highlight it, we right-click, we cut, and then we go to the field that's one over, and we paste, which realigns everything. So again, you can see how it gets a little tedious copying these over and over and over again, but depends. It's like time versus money. What makes more sense for you? And that's up to you to decide. So we'll see here, we've got a couple empty fields. Now, they put a couple empty fields in here. It has to do with when it's importing, if you ever import to Mojo and stuff like that. This list here, we're probably going to print out. I find it's much easier to work with a list in front of you and don't have your computer as a distraction when you're making calls. That's just personally what works for me. You may have something else, but again, if you're just starting out, and you haven't tried a lot of things, at least you can find, my system is one system that works for me. It might work for you. So we have one thing here, we got numbers here, and so this is the first name, that's whatever's in records. The last name, if I double click, it expands to whatever. Now, if we print this, it might be off the page. So what we want to do is we want to get rid of these two. So I'll go over the columns first. So you got first name, last name. This field here is house number, street name, and then unit number. Then you've got your city, province, and postal code. So there's a few fields I get rid of that I don't need for my call list. So these two empty fields we're going to get rid of. So we'll highlight them. We will right click, and this is just so we make room so when we print, everything fits on the page, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of extra room left over to make notes to the right of this when we're writing, just so that it's nice that you make all your notes while you're on the phone, quickly just handwriting, and then when you're done your calls, that's when you add everybody to your database and do all your follow-up work. So right click here, you want to delete, and then we want to delete entire column. Okay, so that one's gone. Got your phone number, first name, last name. Of course, we've gone all that. We want that. We want street name. We want unit number. Though typically when you're doing something here, city and province, they're probably all going to be, I don't know why there's a Kitchener in there, but city and province are all going to be the same. So you're going to know you're calling Waterloo anyways. So you can get rid of these two columns. So we go delete. That just makes more space on our page so that we have room to handwrite our notes while we're talking to people and not be all, distracted while we're trying to find something on the computer. Everything's there. One page, focus. You'll get stuff done a lot faster. So delete the entire column, and okay. I do keep the postal code. It does save me later from looking it up. Now, don't forget that these records are from public sources, so these people may have moved at some point, so that postal code may not be right. So if you're getting somebody's information to nurture them, you're going to want to say, well, hey, what I've got on file for you is such and such an address and such a postal code. Is that currently correct? So verify that when you're on the phone with people. So now that we've got this down to here, what we want to do is in our page layout, we want to make our orientation landscape. So you go to page layout. Again, depends on what version of Word Excel you have. It may be a little different on your computer than mine. But we go to the page layout, and then we go to the orientation, and we make it landscape. When we make it landscape, this blue line goes from here to here. So this means we've got this much area on the page plus our margins to be able to write notes. Another thing you can do too is if you print on legal size paper, legal size paper, then you can get even more room out here to write notes. So that's what I do, is I print all of my call lists on legal size paperwork. Another thing to remember too is these lists that you make, only use them for a maximum of a month. After a month has passed, it's possible that some of these people on this list may have added themselves to the do not call list. So you are responsible every 30 days to rescrub your list. So just create a new list, and don't make a list that's going to take you longer than a month to call. So again, as I was saying, see how it says size here in page layout? So instead of being letter, we could go to legal. And then look at that now. This blue line is way out here. I can make lots of notes beside all of these numbers to know, hey, they're interested in selling their house in a year. We'll follow up in 6 months, etc. Maybe make a note for yourself to add them to the drip campaign, get their email address in the process. All of that fun stuff, because it's all about building your database. Not everybody is going to be thinking of selling right now. So you're going to do a lot more nurtures than have listings fall into your lap. It's all about building that pipeline. So don't just get discouraged. It can take 6 to 9 months of some heavy duty calling to really feel that pipeline building. So don't get discouraged. And the beautiful thing about if you are doing cold calling is that there's going to be a lot of rejection. A great way to think about it is every no you hear is that much closer to your next yes. And if somebody bites your head off, your next call's a fresh call. Has nothing to do with the call before. So don't worry about it. As well, just in my experience, when I was doing some cold calling work for a team before I started doing the tech stuff for our brokerage, I'd make 3.5 to 4 hours of calls a day, and I did that for about 3 months. And I think I only had 2 people tear into me. So what your mind tells you as far as, being scared of making cold calls, somebody's going to yell at me, it's not as bad as you think it is. So do this, and I just want to see if I can get a print layout here for you to see how it'll look on a page. So if we go File... There's our print preview. If I hit print here, so you see here, I wish it was a little bit bigger for us to see. I'll zoom in on my screen here so you guys can see. But so you've got all this space at the right hand side to make your notes. On the left hand side here, what I do is if I talk to somebody, I put a T beside it. If there's no answer, I put an N. If it's B, I put a busy. And so what I will do with a list, especially if it's a new listing or if it's just I'm just calling for listings with no general purpose. So I write down that with the ones I talk to and all of that, or I'll even stroke out the ones that you'll get a lot that'll say this number's not in service, because we've got a lot of people that are just cutting their landline, and you won't have that anymore. Telelisting is working on getting cell phone numbers on here, but it really depends on legislation and a lot of red tape. So we'll see in time what happens with that. So once you've gone through the list once, then what I do is, depending on how big the list is if it takes you 3 days to go through the list, well then in that 3 days afterwards, I'm going to go through that list again and call the people I didn't reach the first time, maybe at a different time of day, so that I catch more people home. One thing I find that you will talk to a lot of people if you call on a Saturday afternoon. So typically a good answer rate as far as people answering the phone is about 25 to 30%. Or actually, no, 20 to 25% is a good answer rate of people being home. If you call on a Saturday, it can be closer to 50%, which is pretty awesome. So time spent per number of people you talk to is better on a Saturday. But again, you really want to lead generate every day, so just lead generating on a Saturday isn't enough. So use this kind of system, go through, and of course, when I call my second time, I'm not going to call the same people I talked to the first time. That's why you make those notes of who you talk to so you can go through. I will usually go through a list 3 times before I retire it. Usually by that point, I would have talked to about 60% of the people I find on that list, hopefully. Some people you'll never catch home. And again, another thing is that I found when I was doing this, at least in the London area, when I was doing cold calling, is that about 2/3 of the population is on the do not call list, at least in the areas of London that I was calling. So it begs a good thing to know that door knocking is still a way to reach those people. So I know door knocking takes longer, but that's how you reach the people that aren't on the do not call list, as well as you tend to, on door knocking, you have a higher quality of conversation face to face in person. So this is how you'd print that off on if you print it off on legal size paper. It's not that much more expensive to buy than letter size paper at the store if you're printing at home. If you're printing in the office, it doesn't cost any more to print on legal size paper. So do that, and then you have a lot more room to make your notes. So once I've made all my notes at the end of my calling spree for the day, what I will do is I will go back to my database, so my CRM system, and I will enter all the people that I'm nurturing in, as well as putting reminders for when I'm going to call back, as well as adding them to my drip campaign. So, and one thing I do is everybody that I do talk to, that I'm going to nurture, is I send them a note card. So I make up a card, and it's personalized. Thank you for taking my call today. Whatever is something you talked about, and send that off with a business card. It's just differentiates you from everybody else that's on these phones. But yeah, make sure you're talking to a lot of people. The phones is a great way of talking to a lot of people in a shorter period of time than say door knocking. But again, I would suggest doing both, so that you are hitting those people that you're missing that are on the do not call list. And of course, if you have any questions, just email me at tech@kwgtr.com. And if it's a quick question, send it off. If not, if you need to meet, we can always arrange an appointment so that I can, show you whatever you want to know about telelisting.